Well, good evening and welcome to Economics Unbound. Tonight we do something special. Bleep, 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 bleep. Oh my dear, Nana, my phone is bleeping. Let me just check who is trying to get hold of me. Oh my goodness, Nana, do you know who's just sent me a message? In fact, it's a please call me. It's none other than Makate, the inventor of Please Call Me. He's due to join me later in studio. Nana, please send him a message to try and tell him that I'm held up on air.
How rude, Tandega. Taking calls while broadcasting? Let me send a message to Makate and tell him not to disturb. Oops, I just sent him a please call me.
So silly, Nana. Please Call Me is a South African invention that happens to be a world first. It is a global story of struggle and strife. It is a legal battle that tested patent laws in our country, from the lowest courts right up to the apex court, the Constitutional Court of South Africa.
Please Call Me was invented by Makate in 2001 when he was in a long-distance relationship. His former girlfriend, now his wife, was studying in the Eastern Cape and he was a trainee at Vodacom. According to Makate, the concept came about with his battles with his girlfriend, who is now his wife. He said that he did not understand whether she did not call him because she didn't have airtime or whether she did not call him because she did not want to call him. He had to make sure that he had guaranteed calls or the initiation of calls coming from her, and that's how the penny dropped, he said.
Ah, Nana, how romantic. Nana, these are the small beginnings of a very important invention that has led the country to ask many serious questions in what the media dubbed a David and Goliath battle, as Makate battled it out with South African international telecommunications giant Vodacom and its parent, Vodafone. The battle raged on for over 10 years. My colleague Francis Hurd spoke to Makate a few years back, and this is how that discussion went. Please listen in.
Another technicality that you waited too long to go to court. The judge found. Why did you wait so long?
Yeah, there is an issue of prescription. I mean, the evidence was let in court, which the judge found to be reasonable. The reason of waiting was obviously preparing and trying to garner my arsenal in order to take this big corporate, that is Vodacom. So I had to basically consult, see lawyers, different strategies, try to open doors basically to what I'm seeking to court today, just to negotiate, sit down like civil people, and come to an agreement or finish our agreement that we actually had.
Okay, we have to discuss something. A third person, Ari Khan, has come forward and said that with him and MTN in conjunction, they went and lodged a patent for the Call Me service. He says that it came up way before Vodacom launched it, the patent was there, and that hundreds of messages had already been sent via MTN. So I imagine that that's easy to go and find. What is your response to that?
I mean, my response is very simple on that. Mr. Khan, I know about his claims, I know about his patent. However, I mean, the two were found in court to be fundamentally different. The Please Call Me service is based on a USSD platform. His conception or idea was based on an IVR system. However, Mr. Khan was also supposed to come and testify on behalf of Vodacom as an expert, but he never pitched in court.
About things like bewitched
Court by Vodacom as they had planned.
After several hiccups and setbacks for Makate, even when the courts had officially recognized him as the inventor and was scathing towards the former Vodacom CEO, Alan Knott Craig, and his successor, Ismail Yaqub, and the conduct of Vodacom in general, a settlement acceptable to both parties remained elusive. First, there was the offer by Vodacom of 10 million rand. Makate rejected this. Then there was later an offer of 47 million. Makate asked for 10 billion on the back of international proceeds that flowed to Vodacom from this invention. While they fought, Makate's public supporters took to the streets and made a movement of his demands. Francis Hurd spoke to the leader of this movement a while ago.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Sitwaba. What's happening tomorrow? There's rumours that it's been cancelled because of Vodacom security arrangements.
No, Vodacom at 12 this morning in the early hours sent an email threatening that we must sign the undertaking that we will never strike at Vodacom's premises or anywhere else where they are.
Yeah.
So we view this as...
So you got legal papers?
From Vodacom's lawyers.
Yes, okay.
Yes, but look, I'm going to ignore those papers because really this is apartheid tactics that Vodacom is using against us. They just said now...
However, just out of interest, we do have laws. Isn't it illegal? You need permission to protest in a public area, and this is a private company's area that we're talking about.
No.
So isn't this a legal matter, in fact?
Section 205 has been applied for.
Have you received that?
By the ANC in Lilliesleaf.
Okay.
Remember now, the Please Call Me movement has been, this will be the third time we go in there. It's not the first time we go into Vodacom's premises. We've been at this for the past 10 months. We've been at Vodacom's premises almost daily.
Have you received permission to protest if this turns into a big one tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we're ready for everything. The Lilliesleaf branch of the ANC, which are the conveners.
Have they received permission?
According to the information that I have, they have received it.
Okay, so this will be a legal protest, and it is going ahead unless this impasse is resolved at 10 o'clock tomorrow, by 10 o'clock.
Yes, but let me ask you a question. Why is it Vodacom is threatened by what is happening tomorrow?
Well, then Vodacom responded, and of course the SABC invited Makate Battled, Vodacom's spokesperson on the issue, into our studios for a chat, and this is what he had to say.
I suppose he's dissatisfied with the amount that has been set by the CEO as constituting reasonable compensation for the idea that he brought to Vodacom approximately 18 years ago. A starting point is Vodacom and Mr. Makate didn't have a contract, or let me say a written contract, for Vodacom to compensate Mr. Makate for the buzz idea that he brought to Vodacom. But it does appear that he had conversation with a former employee of Vodacom, and there was an understanding that if his idea is tested and proven to be both technically and commercially feasible, then they would talk compensation.
Well, then Makate took to the road, approaching the Patent Office of the United States. This image was taken while he was in the United States to find his lost patent, as this was not registered in the Patent Office in South Africa, the South African Registry of Patents, under Vodacom's patents. He found it in the States. Vodacom's statement, attributable to a Vodacom spokesperson, says Vodacom will in due course and in an appropriate forum respond to any allegations made. And now we have Nkosana Makate to talk to us about this long, long journey. Welcome, Nkosana.
Thanks, Sister Ndika.
Now, looking back, it's been a very, very long journey. Is it about to end?
Well, I'm hoping it is. I mean, I'm hoping that we're entering the last, phase of the battle. I mean, we're now subjecting the final review of the CEO to a judicial process, and that will then finalize the process, So we are entering the final review.
What lessons, if any, have you learned along the way? And what could you say to young inventors in this country? What should they anticipate if they come up with a patent? Will they meet capital? Will they be able to commercialize it? Will it ever reach the market?
I think as to young inventors, I mean, obviously, I mean, people need to be careful and stuff like that in the country, because it's not as honest environment that we have out there. Unfortunately, I mean, we're not like in the US, where you have companies of venture capitalists like your 500 startups, which are able to take young inventors, school them, test their ideas, subject them to testing. I mean, that's where your innovations like your Facebook, Twitter, and all the inventions that we actually are in awe come from. They come from very rigorous processes of startups, which is an entrenched culture in San Francisco, in Silicon
and UNISA. And we
there is in South Africa yet. So people obviously will need to be careful out there. But I mean, they must not stop dreaming. They must not stop
Now, what will it
doing
take
things.
for us to get there? Because innovation is crucial to economic growth. And as you know, our growth rate is languishing.
No, certainly. I think that it's the entire ecosystem. I mean, that has to change. We need to have that ecosystem that's going to embrace startups, that's going to embrace innovation, and make sure that, like I said, these people can be onboarded, ideas can be tested, and they can be commercialized. And actually, this has to be done by private sector. I don't think, I mean, it's actually government space to actually do that, because, I mean, all over the world, it's private sector and collaborations that are actually doing that. You know?
Well, in an economic environment such as ours, where money is hard to come by and companies are not necessarily, realizing big yields at the moment, the first thing that when budgets are cut, is R&D. How is that going to pan out for young inventors?
I mean, it's a sad story, because what I'm saying is we actually need companies which their business is actually startups. And they can team up with all corporates and make sure that they have these mutual beneficial incubation hubs for all young people, where young people ideas can be taken into, onboarded, refined, and make sure that we commercialize for all to benefit. I mean, to address the economic situation that we face. The state is doing it, and I'm sure South Africa can do it. We face too many challenges.
Now, the US has got, very creative IT hubs, which are very innovation-rich, like Silicon Valley. And India has got a similar hub. What would it take for us as South Africans, as ordinary citizens who are interested in promoting innovation, to actually create these little hubs of excellence and of curiosity and innovation and discovery?
Yeah, I think what we need, like I said, I mean, although this government can play a role, but I think the private sector, especially people that are super wealthy, I mean, there are some individuals in this country that are indeed wealthy and can enter that space. I mean, they can basically put money that they are prepared to lose. But the problem in the country is that all startups and all ideas are faced, they actually still born, because people do not even begin, because you have to put the collateral before you actually even start creatively and starting to market your product. I mean, if you look at the startups, successful startups, your Airbnb, I mean, it took like a couple of years before it actually took off. Facebook took 7 years. On average, I mean, these super ideas that we see, like your Twitters, will take about 3 years in order to be commercialized and to be successful. So that is the challenge. I mean, we need actually money that people are prepared to lose, and they actually believe in the innovators. They believe in they invest actually in the innovators and people themselves, as opposed to the idea itself. Because if you do that, then there is hope that those people can rise above and deliver what they're pursuing with passion.
Now, back to your journey. Why was your patent not registered here in the patent office at home? I remember checking checking the records for your patent and never finding it. Why was it not registered here?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Vodacom has always maintained that they never registered the patent. But I think the facts are, as things stand, that there was a patent registered in the US. It was registered by a company. The name of the company is Redknee. Who owns it, I don't know. And I mean, you'd remember...
Has it got South African links, this Redknee?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have South African links, because I mean, if you look at the people that were employed there that registered the patent, you have a person called Shyam Seth. You have another person called Christopher McRae. They are co-inventors of the Call Me replica that we have at Vodacom, that we actually developed at Vodacom. So I don't know who's behind it. But I mean, it takes me back really to court. I mean, when I, after 5 days of my cross-examination in court, when Mr. Celius, I mean, SC, who's now late, may his soul rest in peace, started accusing me of many things. about meeting Andrew Mthembu and trying to co-opt him to come and bolster my case somehow and stuff like that at the meeting at Dunkeld and all those things. And when I then understood what he was talking about, then I responded. I said to him, but I mean, that's not what Mr. Mthembu told me. If he said that to you, then I know that you're saying that he's coming to testify. I'm already under oath. Let me tell you exactly what happened. I mean, he had told me in that meeting that I should not feel like a victim. I should not feel like I was the only targeted person. There was a scheme.
There were many other
There were many
patents.
others. I mean, there was a scheme at the time operated by the former CEO, Mr. Not Craig, to actually take IP outside the company for his personal benefit,
That is a shocking claim.
At that time, my cross-examination was curtailed and stopped,
Now tell me about your trip to the United States. What did you learn on that trip?
No, the trip really, I mean, firstly I was on business in the States. I happened to be in California. We had to go to Facebook and all the other companies to see how those corporations are created and what they focus on. I happened to be in San Jose. I heard that the patent office in the US was in San Jose. We had already done some research here at home and found out this red knee leg of the patent. So I then went there to explore with the practitioners, I mean, that work there, as to what are the options available. I mean, now that I've been told, I mean, after some work, that the patent that was registered, it's actually a replica of the Please Call Me concept that we had at Vodacom. And they advised me, I mean, on which routes I could follow.
Later we're going to speak to a lawyer, but if we must think or jump into the inappropriate mind, like the criminal mind, if you were to steal a patent, what would you do? What steps would you embark upon?
I don't know, but I guess, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how these things are done. I mean, I don't know. I guess, I mean, criminals will have to come here and explain themselves. I really don't know how to do it, but I mean, obviously you'll need to tweak a few things. I don't know. I really don't know how it happens.
There's been a lot about Vodacom and other inventions, like Mr. Rabi's invention and another gentleman who claimed to have invented some other aspects that were of technology that were later then used by Vodacom. And they all seemed to be aggrieved many years ago when we as the press spoke to them. Do you know what happened to their journeys or
I don't know. I
patents?
think with Virgil, I mean, when I met him, I think he had been settled
Is
out
Virgil
of court.
Mr. Rabi?
Yeah, Mr. Rabi, yeah. I think he
Yes.
was settled out of court. His case was in court, but then it never really proceeded because it was settled. And then the other people, I mean, like your number for life person, the other guy killed himself, one partner, and that died a natural death. I guess it never, I think they lost a case in arbitration or something like that. Yeah, I mean, those are the ones that I know.
And he left a very sad death note on the internet.
No, yes, indeed. I mean, I think the message was like, what? I merely pulled the trigger. Vodacom killed me. I think that was the message, yeah.
These are very serious allegations, and we did invite Vodacom to come tonight, and we will be speaking to them, and we'll continue to reach out to them to address in a balanced way and in a journalistic way anything. Now we have to take a small break. Stay with us. Well, welcome back. We are now joined live in our Cape Town studio by Tim Ball, a consultant at Weber Wenzel, to help us unpack how we as a developing nation can best commercialize and profit from our inventions, research and development. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
Hi, well, and yourself today?
Well, thank you for joining us. Can you kindly tell us broadly what the important parts of our patent law are and how they differ from other jurisdictions?
Our substantive law, and that's the law really governing what is patentable is very similar to European law. And one of the features in this context that's relevant is that computer programs and business methods are not patentable in South Africa. Now, that differs from the US law, certainly as it was understood in the early 2000s, where business methods particularly were regarded as being patentable.
Now, can you tell me what you think about the particular case we are discussing? What can we learn legally from it?
Well, I think the biggest lesson to learn from this case is that having clear agreements up front is very important.
Would you agree, Nkosana?
No, definitely. I mean, I think written agreements, I mean, would save us from all the troubles that I've had to endure.
So you
for
would have
10 years,
contracted more definitely with Philip Geisler?
No, definitely. I mean, then you maybe got advice and then before engaging and made sure that all things are in writing, you know.
So that's your advice mainly to young inventors. What else would you advise, Tim?
Well, not to disclose one's invention before you have patented it, if it is a patentable invention, or you have a clear agreement.
And what's the role of non-disclosure agreements with those with whom you share the patent?
Well, a non-disclosure agreement means that the disclosure to the person that you are disclosing it to is not a public disclosure. And that's a very important thing in patent law, because in most jurisdictions, once an invention has been publicly disclosed, it's too late to patent it.
And what is the process to patenting when the invention finally reaches the registry office and it is defined and it's drawn up and it's yours? How do you get there?
Well, you would start by filing a provisional patent application.
Yeah.
And you would, in order to do that, you would typically go to a patent attorney who would advise you and do the drafting of the provisional patent specification. And then within 12 months from that, you would file a complete application if you're looking just at South Africa. If you're looking more broadly internationally, you'd file an international application in terms of the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And from there, you would go on to file national applications in the countries in which you are requiring patent protection.
Is it necessary to hire particularly intellectual property lawyers for this process?
Oh, definitely. Mm.
As a matter of law, you're entitled to file your own provisional patent application. But it is highly advisable to get a patent attorney to prepare the specification. I think it's similar to doing your own dentistry to file your own provisional patent application.
Is it expensive? Is it expensive for the young, poor inventor in this country to hire a lawyer and to get the lawyer to take him along the steps? Him or her?
Well, even a provisional patent application may be a lot for a young or poor inventor. But in comparison with foreign patent costs, it's relatively small. And I would think that if you aren't able to raise money for a provisional patent application, you're probably going to have a very difficult time in commercializing an invention further.
So could this be one of the reasons why there is a big commercialization gap in South Africa between the inventor actually doing something viable, bringing a viable invention to the attention of certain people, and when it actually meets capital and goes to market.
Yes, but there are many obstacles to commercialization.
Which are?
You know, just reaching the market and getting products made is difficult.
But Tim, I mean,
Nkosana.
I mean, there is an instance now currently in South Africa. I mean, I read the other day. There's these young people from Kukuletu who are in an incubation program, I think, with Nedbank, if I remember. They came up with some security feature, patented it through that program, and I think the rights had been clearly outlined that they were going to be with the inventors. But I mean, currently that case is in court. It's in court because I think Nedbank wants to pay.
Is there a dispute?
Nedbank wants to pay once off, and these guys want to actually hold on to their patent and have royalties for it and revenue share on it. You know, so it's what we deal with in South Africa. You know. And how corporate also postures in South Africa.
So what's the ideal future model in your view, Tim? Should inventors go into these joint ventures with big corporates, hoping that they will share in the benefits of their patents once commercialized in perpetuity?
And for the duration of the patent, that is like 20 years.
Or for the duration
really,
of the patent,
not really in
rather.
perpetuity, per se, you know.
Oh.
Well, I would say that by and large, an inventor has a better chance of commercializing an invention if they have a big partner. And a small share of a big pie is much better or much bigger than all of nothing.
Yes.
So I am very hesitant to write off relationships with big players where an inventor might get a smaller cut than they might expect.
Right. Now, what do you think inventors can do once they have that relationship with a big corporate to protect themselves commercially and legally?
I think to take good advice and make sure that they have a strong agreement.
Right. Nkosana, you've had a grueling time, and you've been fighting for over a decade now. What personal lessons, we've heard Tim speak about the more legal lessons and the legal advice to young inventors, but this can't have been easy on you emotionally, psychologically, and otherwise. What would you say accounts for your tenacity, and how should other young inventors conduct themselves?
Well, I hope they don't find themselves in my situation as a start. That they cross the T's and dot the I's properly, I mean, from the start. But I mean, what has kept me going? I don't know. It's hope. It's believing in my cause, and I mean the commitment that I had 18 years ago. I hear you saying 10 years, but I've been 10 years in cause. But it's actually 18 years. Yes. 19 this year, or 20 this year, since 2000 November. So it's I guess the resolve that I took. I mean, when I heard that Alan had told Philip Geisler that I was crazy, and I'll never get a cent out of this. I'm greedy, you know. I think from that day, for me, that's when the penny dropped. That's when the resolve actually started. And now, I committed that this will never happen. It will never end like this.
Well, hold on to that thought, because after this short break, we're going to talk about how possibly our current patent laws can be tweaked. We'll continue this discussion after this short break. Stay with us, please. We are going to be continuing
saying to us
and thinking about ways in which we can prevent what happened between Vodacom and Nkosana. and advise other inventors as to how to proceed. Now, is this an ethical issue? I mean, do we need to improve our ethics as a commercial community in South Africa, or do we need to tweak our laws? I'm putting this question to both you and Tim. Please jump in and give me your views.
Maybe Tim must go first.
Tim, what do you think?
Well, I think in this matter, the issue is an ethical issue rather than a legal issue. You know, I'm not sure what the law could have, how the law could have been different. In some countries, there are specific laws governing employee inventions, which might have been relevant. But I don't think that was really the problem here.
Nkosana, what's your view?
No, I think I mean, our constitution already refers to the concept of Ubuntu and how we should be engaging. You know, like even with the handshake, I mean, an agreement can be concluded, you know, as long as we espouse the principle. But I mean, as we learn currently, I mean, that cannot suffice. But I think we just need to embrace those values and try to inculcate them and include them into our boards. And I'm hoping, I mean, with the PCM journey, people, I mean, I'm sure I'm in board discussions already and changing certain things and how people are engaging and conducting themselves in business. I'm hoping, I mean, that will be the legacy, just to be more ethical and to also try to be more inclusive. And I think to take this country forward, I mean, we surpassed Brazil a long time ago in terms of the highest inequality country in the world. If we are going to allow wealth to converge all the time to big corporates which are owned by a few, and then close out those who could participate and grow this economy even further. I mean, you take me, for instance, I mean, where I come from, it would then not be difficult to uplift those around me. Then we're beginning to address inequality. We're beginning to address economic growth. I mean, what I could have done in all the years that I've been battling in this legal space. I mean, I've registered 2 patents already at some point. I never commercialized them. But I mean, it shows that the appetite is there, the thinking is there. And I think young people, if we change our ethics and embrace and tell these stories of successful ones, like, I mean, if we were to tell a story of a successful net bank collaboration, imagine that what we'll do in the ecosystem. Imagine that what we'll do for the young people who are aspiring and thinking of solving issues in their own communities. It will be a
story of shared growth, perhaps?
It's shared growth. I mean, it will basically catapult this country into another terrain. I mean, Silicon Valley, given the problems that we have, they don't have the problems that we have, meaning that we have more challenges to innovate. So we need to work together. We need to work together.
Now, if and when you get this over 1 billion or 10 billion that we all anticipate, what will you do to uplift other inventors and young people in this country, Nkosana?
I mean, I'm sure I'll contribute positively. I've got my plans, but I try not to think too much about them because I'm in the now, you know, and
the process has not unfolded
that's what has kept me going. I always live in the now. I don't think about Hawaii and Maldives or whatever and all those kind of places. I'm here, I'm in a battle, and I need to face the battle. And that's what I'm doing, you know.
Now, can you just speak more granularly about how inventions lead to the development of new industries and new revenue streams and growth for a country? How does that happen?
I mean, look at the advent of advertising within the Please Call Me. It came after Please Call Me was invented. So that already is an industry in its own. I mean, you have companies like your Integrate and all the other companies that have then benefited out of that. People could now sell their music there.
I saw a British ad with Please Call Me.
So it's I think it's boundless. It's limitless, you know. We just need to begin, you know. and embrace each other and make sure that we use all the resources that this country has. And we do have those resources. It's just that we need to ignite it and start this fire. You know?
And what is the role of education in creating more inventions and having a more prolific output from our young inventors?
I mean, I could not come up with a proposal for a product at Vodacom without my background in education. I mean, I understood the environment that I was in. I had already, I think, done my honors, or I was working towards my honors. I had my degree. I was using costing concepts to do that. So you need education. You cannot really do it without education. You need education. It will aid you into being more inventive, because you can then use those tools, mathematics and whatever, in order to come up with solutions that can then address all the challenges that we face. I think it's very key.
Tim, this country speaks a lot about the potential of the fourth industrial revolution, which will be powered by new IT innovations and inventions. Does the law have space to catch up, or what are your views on that?
I think the law does have some catching up to do, especially in the patent field in relation to AI created inventions, and questions of who will own those and whether they're patentable at all if you don't have a human inventor. The standard by which patentability is judged, an invention must involve an inventive step, and that means it must be non-obvious to a person skilled in the art. Now, if work is being done by machines, you know, when is something obvious to a machine or not? And if your standard for judging inventiveness is the standard of a machine, does that exclude human inventors now from getting patents?
This is a very interesting area, both legally and ethically. What do you think the ethical issues with new AI will be and new inventions of that kind?
I'm not sure how much. Okay, so the one ethical issue is just if inventions are being made by machines, and that's likely to concentrate inventions in the hands of those with access to that technology.
Now, Nkosana, the road ahead is shorter than the road behind you, but can you just describe what the road ahead is like? What lies ahead for you now legally? What's the process ahead?
Legally? No, we've obviously, I mean, applied to court for a judicial review of the final determination that was made by Shamil.
Shamil Yaqub, is that the CEO?
Yusuf.
Yes, Shamil Yusuf.
Yes. The CEO of Vodacom. We are reviewing that, and what's going to be happening. I mean, in a couple of days. I think on Tuesday we are now in case management. We applied for case management, and luckily, I mean, the DJP, the Doaba in North Gauteng, gave us a case manager when we approached him. That is Justice Colapen. We'll be going to see him on Tuesday in order to outline a timeline of every step and applications to court that are going to follow. We're looking for documents. We're first looking for revenues that Please Call Me has generated, that Vodacom calculated, in fact, and have that information.
You're looking for a KPMG report?
We're looking for a KPMG report, which I was awarded a long time ago, which deals with a couple of things. I mean, it deals with certain extracts. It also deals with the issue of revenues itself, you know. So, we also looking, I mean, for the basis that the CEO used in determining the period that he provided to me of 5 years or 3 years. Yeah, and that's what we're looking for. And after getting that, then we'll then outline the timeline. Depending when that is going to be argued, there will probably be a date of when that will be argued. But I mean, that's the journey, yeah.
Well, to you, my very interesting guests, thank you for that riveting discussion. Well, Nana, that was interesting, and it's time now to say goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye first, Nana?
Yes, Tans, the national system of innovation since our transition to democracy in 1994, the white paper on science and technology in 1996, and the national research and development strategy in 2002, together with subsequent policy documents, explicitly identify IP management as a tool for development. And the question I wish to know the answer to that this discussion has begun to help me ponder is, where did we go wrong? Good night.
Good night, everyone.